Hello, I'm Vinton, a father who gave everything for my son, teaching him honesty in our Evston workshop. But when his colleague grabbed my hand, whispering, "Don't sign anything, just run away," I uncovered his chilling plot to frame me for millions. Worse, he spat, "You're too old to matter," shattering my trust. Yet I've been quietly building a case. What did I do to turn his betrayal against him? Follow my story to find out. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The winter sun crept through the curtains of my Evston home, casting faint shadows across the living room. I poured coffee into my old ceramic mug, the one Eulalia picked out at a flea market years back, its chipped edge a quiet reminder of her. 5 years since she left, and the house still felt too big without her laughter filling it. I glanced at the mantel where photos of our family stood like sentinels, me, Eulalia, and our son Zebulon, back when he was just a kid with grease-stained hands from our basement workshop. Those days I taught him how to wire circuits and measure twice, lessons I thought would stick. Now, at 68, I was just a retired engineer, my bridges built, my days steady but solitary. I settled into my armchair with the morning paper, the rustle of pages blending with the hum of the heater. My career had been about precision, building structures that lasted, like the family I tried to hold together. Henry Ford's words came to mind. Chop your own wood, and it will warm you twice. Hard work had always been my creed, and I'd passed it to Zebulon, or so I thought. Lately his calls were rare, always rushed, laced with that Chicago Polish he'd picked up running his tech firm, Data Secure Solutions. Each one left a faint unease, like a blueprint with a missing measurement. The phone rang, sharp against the morning quiet. Zebulon's name flashed on the screen. I set the paper down, my gut tightening. "Dad," his voice came through, urgent but syrupy. "The company's in trouble. I need you to come to Chicago, sign some papers to save it. It's a family thing, you know?" His words hit like a sales pitch, too smooth, too practiced. I leaned back, picturing his corner office, all glass and ambition, so far from our old workshop. "What kind of trouble?" I asked, keeping my tone even. He dodged, saying it was urgent, a one-time fix. Duty tugged at me, family first, like Reagan used to preach, but something in his voice didn't sit right, like a bolt forced into the wrong thread. I agreed to go, but my mind was already turning. Benjamin Franklin's line echoed, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." I'd learned to trust my instincts over decades of troubleshooting. Zebulon's plea felt like one of his old ploys, like when he'd borrow money and forget to repay. As I hung up, the phone buzzed again. Texts this time. "Dad, you're my only hope," one read, followed by more, each dripping with panic. I stared at the screen, the words too familiar, echoing a loan from 5 years back he never settled. Sitting at the kitchen table, I thought of Eulalia's advice. Set boundaries, even with family. Oprah's words came to me. Turn your wounds into wisdom. I wasn't ready to confront him, but I'd watch closely. Packing my bag for Chicago, I moved deliberately, folding clothes with the same care I'd used drafting plans. The texts kept coming, piling up like warning signs. The last one hit as I zipped the bag. "Hurry, Dad, time's running out." I stood still, the house quiet around me, my mind already on the road ahead, sifting through memories that felt less like treasures and more like warnings. Stepping into the gleaming downtown office, the contrast to my simple life hit me immediately. The drive from Evston to Chicago had been a slow crawl through February's gray slush, the city's glass towers rising like cold ambition against the sky. I'd spent those hours on I-94 replaying Zebulon's promises from our family dinners, back when he swore he'd make me proud. Those words felt hollow now, like a blueprint sketched in haste. My old pickup truck seemed out of place in the underground garage, surrounded by sleek sedans driven by suited folks half my age. I adjusted my coat, practical wool against their tailored sheen, and headed for the lobby, my mind sharp despite the unease. Warren Buffett's words stayed with me. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. I wasn't here to ruin mine. The lobby of Data Secure Solutions buzzed with corporate hustle, phones ringing, screens glowing, young professionals striding past. I approached the digital sign-in at the security desk, scanning the visitor list. My name stared back, misspelled as Vincent Caldwell, retired associate. A small thing, but it stopped me cold. I'd built bridges that held thousands. They could at least get my name right. I corrected it on the tablet, my engineer's precision keeping my face calm, though inside, I wondered if this was carelessness or something deliberate. The receptionist handed me a badge, still bearing Vincent, and I tucked it away, noting the slight like a misaligned beam. It reminded me of stories I'd read about elders being dismissed in America's rush for progress, their experience erased by a typo or a glance. The elevator ride to the 23rd floor was a blur of overheard chatter, deals, deadlines, profits. These kids spoke a language of ambition I'd never chased, teaching Zebulon instead the value of honest work in our basement workshop. Stepping out, I saw the company logo, bold and proud, a reminder of how I'd inspired his start. Yet now I felt like an outsider in his world. The corridor stretched long, lined with glass offices, and I walked it slowly, piecing together why a simple signature needed me here in person. My gut, honed by years of spotting structural flaws, told me this wasn't adding up. In the lobby area before the conference room, a young employee caught my eye, smirking. "You the retired guy, tinkering with old tools?" he said, voice dripping with condescension. I smiled thinly, replying, "Built bridges that'll outlast your desk job." His grin faltered, and I held my gaze, refusing to be diminished. Zebulon appeared then, all charm, introducing me vaguely as, "My dad, here to help." The words stung, reducing me to a prop in his polished world. I scanned the room, awards on the walls, some tied to principles I'd drilled into him, feeling a quiet resolve settle in. His staff's deference to him, their quick glances sharpened my suspicion. Something was off, and I wasn't here to play along blindly. As I waited alone for the meeting, a colleague across the room shot me a strange look, his eyes carrying a warning I couldn't yet read. The office hum faded, but my unease grew louder, like a crack spreading in a foundation. Dawn broke over Evston, yet the shadows of doubt lingered as I prepared to face the truth. The drive back from Chicago was a blur of headlights and half-formed thoughts, the city's chaos fading into the familiar crunch of gravel under my tires as I pulled into my driveway. The winter air bit at my knuckles as I unlocked the door, hung my coat, and sank into the worn armchair where I'd once read bedtime stories to Zebulon. The house was quiet, save for the steady tick of the mantel clock, a reminder of years slipping by. I poured a cup of coffee, its warmth a small comfort against the chill of yesterday's oddities, the misnamed badge, the smirks, that strange glance from a stranger in the office. My mind, trained to spot flaws in steel and concrete, was now picking apart my son's intentions. Sitting there, I thought of Benjamin Franklin's words, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." I'd poured years into teaching Zebulon, math, morals, the value of a steady hand. But now, those lessons felt squandered, like blueprints left to gather dust. Wanting answers, I reached for the family album on the shelf, its leather cover worn from years of handling. I needed to ground myself in what we'd been before I faced whatever came next. I flipped open the album, landing on a photo of Zebulon at 10, grinning in our backyard workshop, a screwdriver in hand. We'd built a model bridge that summer, his small hands eager to learn. Turning the pages, I saw us on a Wisconsin vacation, Eulalia's laughter caught mid-frame as Zebulon splashed in the lake. Those moments felt like anchors, but by 2018 the photos changed. Zebulon in suits, his smile sharper, his eyes on something beyond us. I lingered on his college graduation where he'd hugged me on stage, saying, "You're the reason, Dad." That memory stung now, clashing with the dismissive, "My dad, here to help," from yesterday. The misnamed badge wasn't just a mistake. It was a sign of how far he'd drifted from the boy I raised. I sipped my coffee, piecing together the pattern of disregard, my resolve hardening without a word spoken. Then, tucked between the pages, I found an envelope, Eulalia's neat handwriting on it. For Vinton. My breath caught. It was dated a month before she passed. I opened it carefully, unfolding her words. "Protect him, but don't let him break you." The sentence hit like a punch, tying straight to the unease from Chicago. She'd run our little bookshop with fierce honesty, always warning me about Zebulon's charm outpacing his conscience. Her note was a puzzle piece, clicking into place, explaining the office slights. Franklin's words came back. My investment in Zebulon might have been misused, but my integrity was still mine. I tucked the letter back, my mind now razor-sharp, ready for whatever lay ahead. As I set the album aside, my phone buzzed with another text from Zebulon. "Dad, we need you back tomorrow. Urgent." The words carried a weight I couldn't ignore, pulling me toward a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Back in the cold Chicago air, I hailed a cab, my thoughts turning to the forged papers waiting discovery. The night in Evston had left me restless, Eulalia's letter burning in my mind as I drove back to the city. By morning, I was navigating the 23rd floor of Data Secure Solutions, the gray-carpeted hallway humming under fluorescent lights. The company logo gleamed on every door, a stark contrast to the workshop where I'd taught Zebulon to value honesty over flash. Employees hunched over desks, their furious typing a reminder of a world that prized profit over principle. My boots felt heavy on the polished floor, each step sharpening my focus. Maya Angelou's words echoed. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I was here to find out who Zebulon had become. I approached the glass-walled conference room, spotting Zebulon through the panes, his hands waving as he pitched something to a small group. His urgency from the phone calls didn't match the charm he was laying on now. I slipped inside quietly, taking a seat at the long table, my eyes scanning the stack of documents in front of me. Zebulon greeted me with a quick smile, too warm, too brief, introducing a partner whose name I barely caught. "Dad's here to help us out," he said, his voice smooth but hollow. I nodded, keeping my face neutral, though my mind was racing, piecing together the office's slick dynamics. The misnamed badge and smirks from yesterday weren't accidents. They were signals. I sat back, ready for whatever came next, my instincts honed from years of spotting cracks in structures. As I reached for a pen, a hand grabbed mine under the table, firm, urgent, but hidden. It was Rulon, the colleague who'd given me that strange look yesterday. He leaned close, his whisper barely audible over the room's chatter. "Don't sign anything. Just run away." His eyes held a fear that hit me like a jolt. I froze for a split second, my mind tying his words to the misspelled name, to Eulalia's warning. Zebulon was across the room, oblivious, laughing with his partner. Rulon let go, glancing nervously at him, then back at me. My heart pounded, but I kept my face steady, years of engineering calm kicking in. I'd read about fraud cases where elders were saved by a single warning, real stories, not just headlines. I gave Rulon a subtle nod, my mind already racing through what this meant. I needed more. Rulon caught me by the side door as the meeting broke for coffee. His voice was low, urgent, pulling me back to a dinner years ago at my house where he'd called me an inspiration for his career. "I saw Zebulon change documents," he said, eyes darting, "backdating them to pin wire fraud on you." The words landed like a hammer, echoing Eulalia's plea to protect myself. Rulon admitted his own father had been scammed once, pushing him to take this risk. I listened, connecting the dots. Zebulon's calls, the badge, now this. Angelou's advice rang true. He was showing me who he was, and I believed it. "Thank you," I said quietly, my resolve hardening like steel. I slipped out the door as he urged, my steps steady despite the chaos in my head. As I descended the service stairs, my phone vibrated, Zebulon demanding to know where I was. Each buzz felt like a warning of the fight that was just beginning. Back in Evston that evening, the relentless buzzing began, each ring amplifying my determination. After slipping out of Zebulon's office, the Chicago streets felt colder, sharper as I ducked into a cafe on State Street. I picked a booth in the back, away from the lunch crowd's chatter, and ordered a black coffee, its bitter steam grounding me. My phone sat heavy in my hand, loaded with photos of the documents I'd snapped before Rulon's warning sent me running. His words, "Don't sign anything, just run away," echoed, tying to Eulalia's letter, urging me to protect myself. I scrolled through the images, my engineer's eye scanning for flaws, knowing I was onto something big. Albert Einstein's words came to mind. Anyone who never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Zebulon's scheme was his mistake, and I'd make sure it cost him. The cafe's hum faded as I zoomed in on the first document. Corporate letterheads glared back, official but off. I cross-checked dates, spotting stamps that predated my involvement with Data Secure Solutions. Liability clauses had my name, Vinton Caldwell, slipped in, tying me to decisions I'd never made. My pulse quickened, but I kept steady, years of auditing bridges teaching me to stay calm under pressure. The papers screamed fraud, wire transfers, $2.3 million in debt, all pinned on me. I compared the language to my old engineering reports. Zebulon's forgers had botched technical terms I'd taught him to use correctly, mismatched fonts, uneven seals. It was sloppy, and I'd caught it. I saved the images to a secure cloud, my mind already mapping a counterplan. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a setup, and I wasn't going to be the fall guy. Then I saw it. My signature, forged but eerily close, mimicking the loops I'd taught Zebulon in our workshop when he was a boy. I pulled up an old letter he'd written at 12, thanking me for a toolbox. The handwriting matched too well. Someone had studied it. The irony hit hard. Lessons meant to build character now twisted to frame me. I thought of his skipped family dinners, his vague promises, all early signs of this deceit. My indignation grew, not loud but focused, like a beam finding its mark. I annotated the discrepancies on my phone, each note a step toward legal action. Einstein's words rang again. Zebulon's error was my opening. I dialed my lawyer's number, ready to turn evidence into justice, my resolve as firm as the bridges I'd built. As I drained my coffee, the phone rang. Zebulon's number again. His persistence wasn't just annoying, it was a threat, and I was ready to face it head-on. Morning light filtered through my window, but Zebulon's looming presence darkened my resolve. Back in my Evston home, I sat at my desk, the oak surface scarred from years of work, now a battleground for a different kind of fight. My phone buzzed relentlessly, Zebulon's name flashing with 37 missed calls, each voicemail sharper than the last. "Dad, we're done if you don't sign." His desperation was a siren, but I wasn't crashing on those rocks. I opened my laptop, uploading the photos of forged documents from the cafe to a secure cloud, ensuring nothing could be erased. John F. Kennedy's words steadied me. "Forgive your enemies, but never forget their names." Zebulon's name was burned into my mind, and I wasn't letting go of what I'd uncovered. The texts kept coming, piling up like storm clouds, pleas for me to rush back to Chicago, each one more frantic. I silenced the phone, my engineer's discipline kicking in, focusing on evidence over his emotional barrage. I jotted down call timestamps in a notebook, methodical as always, preparing for my lawyer meeting. Rulon's warning in the office had lit a fuse, and now Zebulon's panic confirmed it. Those forged papers weren't just a mistake, they were a trap. I thought of the audits I'd run on bridge projects, catching errors before they cost lives. This was no different. His shift from charm to desperation was a tell, and I was reading it clear as day. I opened my email, drafting a message to a trusted Chicago lawyer, attaching the document photos and outlining the forged signatures. Years of spotting discrepancies in contracts gave me clarity. Backdated clauses, mismatched fonts, technical terms Zebulon never mastered. I double-checked the cloud backups, Midwestern practicality, ensuring no single point of failure. Pausing, I considered Rulon's risk, a young man sticking his neck out because he'd seen his own father burned by a scam. That debt pushed me to act, not just for myself, but for what was right. I hit send, a quiet surge of control washing over me as the legal wheels started turning. Then my phone lit up again, a text from Zebulon. "Sign it or I'll tell everyone you abandoned me." The words were a cheap shot, trying to twist years of support into a lie. I read it twice, then deleted it, Kennedy's advice keeping me steady. I'd bankrolled his ventures, sat through his pitches. Abandonment was his story, not mine. I texted Rulon discreetly, confirming the lawyer contact, keeping our moves quiet. Pacing the room, I felt the weight lift, my defiance stronger than his threats. Tomorrow I'd drive to the lawyer's office, ready to expose the truth. As I shut off the light, another text from Zebulon landed, promising a face-to-face showdown, its words heavy with the storm I was ready to meet. The night was quiet, but I knew tomorrow's meeting would bring the storm. After sending the lawyer email from my Evston home, I'd driven back to Chicago for a quick meeting with my attorney, going over the forged documents under the fluorescent glow of his office. Zebulon's text from last night, "We need to talk, face to face," hung over me like a dark cloud as I hit the road back to Evston. The sky churned, rain starting to speckle my windshield, each drop sharpening my focus on what lay ahead. I pulled into my driveway, the gravel crunching under my tires, and froze. Zebulon's car sat there, its chrome gleaming under the streetlights. My pulse quickened, but Martin Luther King Jr.'s words steadied me. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge. I stepped out, my coat soaking in the downpour, ready for the fight I'd seen coming. Zebulon turned as I approached, his face twisted with anger. No greeting, just a shout through the rain. "You're too old to matter, Dad. I needed a fall guy." His voice shook, the storm masking his desperation. The words stung, but I stood firm, rain dripping down my collar, and shot back. "You forgot who taught you to stand." My tone was calm, cutting through his fury like a blade. He paced, waving his arms, blaming me for his company's collapse, his suit wrinkling in the wet. I watched the dark circles under his eyes, the cracks in his polished mask. His world was crumbling, and he wanted me to take the blame. He threw out threats of disownment, saying I'd ruined him by not signing. I didn't budge, my silence louder than the storm. When he slammed his car hood, the sound lost to the rain. I turned and walked away, ending it on my terms, my resolve as solid as the bridges I'd built. Soaked and chilled, I ducked into a nearby cafe, ordering hot tea to steady myself. The booth's quiet corner gave me space to process. An older waiter, his apron worn from years of work, noticed my mood. "Family trouble?" he asked, pouring my tea. I nodded, keeping it vague, just mentioning a son who'd gone astray. He sighed, saying, "You're not the first dad to lose a son like this." His words hit deep, echoing stories of American families split by ambition or greed. We talked briefly, him sharing how his kids chased careers over connection. King's words on character rang true. My stand in the rain was my measure, not Zebulon's betrayal. I left the cafe, the rain slowing, my mind clear for the legal steps ahead. I drove home from the cafe shop, the rain-soaked confrontation with Zebulon still ringing in my ears, the waiter's words, "You're not the first dad to lose a son like this," echoing in my mind. The unknown text that buzzed as I left glowed on my phone. Rulon, warning, Zebulon's planning something bigger. Check your files. My pulse quickened, tying his message to the driveway clash where Zebulon called me a fall guy. Back in my Evston home, I sat at my desk, the oak scarred from years of work, and pulled open a locked drawer. My fingers found a sealed envelope labeled "For Vinton" in Eulalia's neat script. My breath caught as I opened it, revealing her will, pages detailing a trust fund for our family now diverted to data-secure solutions. I cross-checked dates against the forged documents from Chicago, spotting discrepancies that screamed Zebulon's manipulation. Theodore Roosevelt's words hit me. "Do what you can, with what you have, where you are." I scanned the will, uploading it to my secure cloud, my resolve hardening to protect Eulalia's legacy with this proof. Driven by that find, I logged into an old email account Eulalia and I shared, my hands steady despite the outrage building. There it was, a message from Zebulon, sent before my Chicago trip. "Dad's signature will cover our tracks." The words burned, confirming the $2.3 million fraud setup. I checked the metadata, pinning it to before my visit, a clear admission of guilt. I printed it, adding it to my evidence folder, thinking of elder fraud cases across the U.S., where digital trails turned the tide. I texted Zebulon, demanding he come to my house, keeping my tone flat to hide my strategy. My mind raced, jotting notes for my lawyer, dates, clauses, intent, each step a move toward justice. I wasn't just reacting, I was building a case, rooted in the American drive to right wrongs. I drove to my lawyer's office in Evston, the folder heavy with the will and email. I laid out Zebulon's threats and the forgery, my voice calm as I detailed the driveway clash and Rulon's warning. My lawyer nodded, confirming the evidence's weight, and advised filing wire fraud charges now. As we spoke, my phone rang, Zebulon sneering, "You'll regret this, old man." I recorded it, adding it to my arsenal, my pulse even. I told the lawyer to contact Rulon as a witness, keeping it quiet to avoid retaliation. Roosevelt's advice rang true. I was acting right here, right now, and the control was mine. I left, mind set on the courtroom, ready to end Zebulon's schemes for good. As I stepped outside, a voicemail from Rulon buzzed. warning of Zebulon's desperate next move, its urgency chilling me. In the hushed hall, final arguments unfolded, sealing fates. The drive from Evston to the Northern District of Illinois courthouse felt heavy, the weight of weeks of evidence and betrayal pressing on me. By mid-March, the air carried a hint of spring, but inside courtroom 2347 it was all marble and tension. I walked through security, the American flags lining the hall a reminder of the justice I was chasing. Taking my seat in the gallery, I saw Zebulon in an orange jumpsuit, his once cocky stride gone, shoulders slumped. I didn't gloat. My focus was on truth, not revenge. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's words steadied me. Real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time. Today was a big step, and I was ready to take it. The prosecutor called me to the stand. I swore the oath, my voice clear, and began laying out the forged documents, backdated clauses, my name inserted to cover Zebulon's $2.3 million fraud. I presented the photos I'd snapped, pointing out mismatched dates and fonts, my engineer's precision guiding every word. The defense tried to rattle me, questioning my memory, but I countered with sharp recollections of every discrepancy, calm as if inspecting a blueprint. The jury leaned in, their eyes locked on me, and I felt the case shift toward accountability. Stepping down, I returned to my seat, my mind noting their attentive faces, sensing the tide turning. Next, Rulon took the stand, his voice steady despite the risk. He detailed Zebulon's boasts about using my trust, laying out a timeline of document alterations that backed my evidence. The prosecutor pressed him on why he'd come forward, and Rulon shared how his own father had been scammed, his story hitting a nerve with anyone who'd seen family turn on family. The defense painted him as disgruntled, but he held firm, producing logs of Zebulon's shady deals, no drama, just facts. I watched Zebulon, his eyes dodging mine, his silence louder than any outburst. Rulon stepped down, giving me a nod, our unspoken bond a wall against Zebulon's deceit. The audience, folks like me, older, wiser, nodded too, knowing what it meant to stand up. During a recess, Zebulon snapped, shouting across the room, "He was never there!" I stood, replying coolly, "I was there every day you learned to lie." The words hung heavy, the jury murmuring, the judge banging for order. The prosecutor pounced, tying his outburst to the evidence, pushing us closer to a verdict. I sat back, Ginsburg's words on enduring change in my mind, feeling the case solidify. As the session broke, I walked out through the media buzz, my focus on the resolution ahead, knowing the truth was starting to heal the wounds. The judge's gavel still echoed in my mind as I left the courthouse, the weight of Zebulon's 12-year sentence settling like dust after a storm. Driving back to Evston through mid-March's chill, I replayed the trial's final moments. Rulon's testimony, my own steady words, the jury's nods. Media vans trailed me, but I kept my eyes forward, no interest in their headlines. At home, I sank into my armchair, trial notes spread across my lap, Rulon's courage standing out as the key to justice. Helen Keller's words grounded me. Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it. I'd overcome, not with spite, but with truth. Neighbors called, their voices warm, offering support that felt like family when mine had crumbled. Sorting through frozen assets for restitution, I decided to sell the house. Madison, Wisconsin beckoned, a lakeside fresh start. I browsed cottages online, each listing a step toward a new life. Packing was my next move, methodical as ever. I boxed up the past, donating Zebulon's old toys and letters that once promised loyalty, keeping Eulalia's scarf for strength. At the Evston shelter, I adopted Max, a rescue dog whose hopeful eyes mirrored my own second chance. Loading the moving truck, I swapped stories with neighbors about their own family rifts, their words bolstering my resilience. The drive to Madison traced from city sprawl to quiet fields, Lake Mendota's shores welcoming me. At my new cottage, I unpacked essentials, each item placed lifting a burden. Walking Max by the lake, the water's calm ripples spoke of freedom over toxic ties. I wasn't fleeing, I was building anew, an old engineer laying a fresh foundation. In Madison, I joined a volunteer crew fixing homes, my hands steady with a hammer, my engineering know-how finding purpose. Over shared work, I heard stories, sons who chased ambition, daughters who forgot home, each tale weaving us closer. The crew leader grinned, saying, "Your expertise is gold here," words that hit deeper than family praise ever did. Keller's overcoming shaped my days as I hosted a small coffee gathering at my cottage, stories flowing like the lake outside. These new ties, forged in grit, filled voids without replacing what was lost. Zebulon's prison walls were his, my growth was mine. Opening the door revealed a face from the past, closing the circle. Months after the trial, April's soft light bathed my Madison cottage, the lake's gentle ripples waking me each morning. I brewed coffee in the small kitchen, the space feeling open, free of the burdens I'd left behind in Evston. Max, my rescue dog, scratched at the door, eager for our walk. We strolled along Lake Mendota's shore, spring blooms dotting the path, purple crocuses, signs of renewal after the winter storms of betrayal. Ralph Waldo Emerson's words settled in my mind. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Cutting ties with Zebulon wasn't loss. It was strength, a choice I made without regret. Back home, I sorted the last boxes, donating old papers tied to past conflicts, keeping only Eulalia's scarf and a few photos that still held warmth. Reading the morning news, I felt unencumbered, family obligations gone, replaced by a quiet freedom I hadn't known in years. Later, I sifted through old letters from Zebulon, their promises now hollow. I stored them without rereading, acknowledging the pain but refusing to linger. A call to my lawyer confirmed the final asset transfers. Zebulon's frozen accounts no longer my concern. Emerson's wisdom rang true. My resilience outweighed the loss of those fractured bonds. Curious, I joined an online senior forum, sharing vague insights about moving past betrayal, finding nods of agreement from strangers who'd walked similar paths. In the backyard, I sketched plans for a garden, each seed a metaphor for growth unhindered by toxic roots. Success, I realized, came from within, not from family approval, a truth that steadied me like the bridges I once built. By dawn, I sat on the deck, Max at my feet, the lake's calm mirroring my own. A neighbor's invite to a community picnic arrived, and I accepted, ready to build new ties free from old shadows. Emerson's words returned. Inner peace trumped broken relations. I jotted in my journal, calling this liberation my greatest achievement, no trace of resentment. Gazing at the horizon, I planned trips, maybe the Rockies, maybe the coast, optimism fueling me. Solitude wasn't loss, it was my choice, a life unburdened. A knock at the door broke the morning's calm, an unexpected visitor stirring a faint curiosity I couldn't place. In this final dawn, true freedom dawned. The knock at my door yesterday had been a neighbor dropping off a community flyer, but it stirred a quiet reflection as I sat on my Madison cottage's deck, coffee steaming in the May morning light. Lake Mendota sparkled, its ripples carrying a peace I'd fought hard for. Max chased a butterfly nearby, his playful bounds a symbol of the new life I'd built, free from the chains of Zebulon's betrayal. Months after the trial, the weight of his 12-year sentence felt distant, like a storm that had passed. Maya Angelou's words grounded me. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. Exposing Zebulon's scheme, those forged documents, the diverted trust, was my stand, not just for me, but for elders like me across the U.S., too often targeted by those they trust. I scrolled through a news clip on my phone, Data Secure Solutions collapse now public, and felt closure, not glee. The justice system had worked, my evidence the cornerstone, and I'd won without losing myself. The mail arrived as I sipped my coffee, an envelope catching my eye. Rouland's handwriting, neat and familiar. I opened it carefully, his words hitting deep. You saved more than yourself, Vinton. I'm at a new job, honest work, because of you. His loyalty, that whispered warning in Chicago, had flipped Zebulon's scheme, landing us in the courtroom where truth won out. I didn't linger on old encounters, but our alliance was the key, a quiet payback I'd never forget. Angelou's perseverance rang true. Rouland's letter was proof my actions mattered. I tucked it into a drawer, a final chapter closed, my heart lighter, ready for a future unburdened by deceit. The lake's breeze carried a promise of days ahead, free and clear. I stood planning a community event, volunteers to fix a neighbor's porch, a chance to give back. A call to my lawyer confirmed Zebulon's full accountability, no loose ends. Walking Max along the shore, I embraced independence as my greatest win, no longer tangled in manipulation. I shared a quiet moment with him, whispering, "We made it, boy," my voice steady with the self-reliance I'd earned. Looking to the horizon, I pictured travels, maybe Montana's mountains or Maine's coast, a life renewed. This wasn't just closure, it was triumph, built on my terms. Though the chapter ended, a distant thought of lasting peace lingered, like the lake's endless ripples. Discover a gripping, family drama story, where betrayal cuts deep and resilience triumphs. When my son's colleague grabbed my hand, whispering, "Don't sign anything, just run away," I uncovered a shocking plot to frame me. Follow my journey as a 68-year-old father battling deceit in this emotional tale of justice and redemption. This heartfelt story resonates with American values of strength and truth, perfect for those who love intense family sagas. Subscribe for more powerful stories.